right, everyone stop.
Yeah.
So, turns out I also need to hit record.
Fired.
Ready? I'm going to hit record. So now we got to do all of it again, including the clapping. Ready?
Oh, that's my favorite part.
So I'm clapping.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Reinvention podcast. This week, we continue our special mini-series of keynote speakers talking about their keynote speeches. This week, we talk with Elizabeth Byland. She's an improver, educator, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. She's also one of the coolest people I know, and I know lots of people. You're going to love it. Hi, I'm Aaron Anderson, and I'm here with Laura Bowser for Evolve Productions.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
And we're here with Elizabeth Byland.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be here.
So, Elizabeth, you're a professional improviser. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I think a lot of people are familiar with improv from shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway or other sort of comedy things. But can you tell me a little bit about how improv is different than just comedy?
Yeah. Well, improv really goes far beyond the world of entertainment and mainstream media. Thanks to those things, it certainly has made it popular. But actually, improv, when you sort of take it out of that context, it's really just listening and being in the moment with another individual and responding without a script. So even this conversation that we're having right now, it's all improv. Or the phone call that you had earlier today, with someone, maybe somebody on your team or your mom or a spouse, that was all improv. So actually we're all really great at the art of improvising. However, when it really boils down to is it's listening. It's listening and responding without a script and being in the moment with someone else. And that means that we have to be vulnerable and open to another individual and allow them to affect us.
That sounds really hard.
It is hard because in today's world, we're constantly on the go. We are multitasking, checking our emails and texting and getting to the next thing on our to-do list. So it's really hard to be in the moment and listen and connect with someone. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you. I was checking something on my phone.
Do it again. Sure. Okay.
No. We're good. So let's move on. So improv are just basic life skills of being in the moment with other people.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, so Elizabeth, you do a lot of keynotes and workshops with businesses on the topic of improv. What kind of skills do people walk away with? How is it useful for a business?
Yeah. Well, at the core of improv is empathy. And with that comes a whole set of skills that we practice, the soft skills of communication that are rooted in empathy. Again, allowing someone to change you. And that means that we have to practice listening. Really, when was the last time that you genuinely practiced listening or even practiced, being in the moment and responding with emotional intelligence instead of out of fear, or practicing leadership and support and practicing trust. These are all things that, I think probably any good business owner, leader, entrepreneur is looking for, particularly with their team of employees. And that's another thing, right? So improv is about coming together with a group of individuals and accepting these individuals. And so that kind of creates this really cool sort of tribe mind, right? It's a wonderful place to practice teamwork and supporting our fellow colleagues and practicing creativity with these colleagues. So, and again, you can't have any of that without empathy.
So you were talking
Love
about
that.
practicing this. I don't know that in my entire life I've practiced listening.
Right?
I mean, honestly, or any of those things. So you're talking about things that sound kind of touchy feely, but you're now talking about a thing that you could practice that supposedly there would be some way of measuring whether I was doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it too, like like some of the best basketball players in the world, right? They got to where they are because they practiced, a set of skills over and over and over again. And it's interesting because in improv, or even just as business leaders and as entrepreneurs, as artists, as creators, there are a set of skills that we should be practicing. Again, the idea of taking initiative, but how do we really practice that? Or how do you really practice chasing your fears and being confident and being in a moment of uncertainty? Well, on paper, those things are certainly needed for any business, but how do we do that? It's like practicing a jump shot. That's something that we know how to practice, but practicing listening and practicing empathy, that's not something that we'll necessarily be able to find over just a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. That's something that that's something
be the opposite.
Yeah. It's something that requires sort of an experiential learning opportunity. And that's exactly what improv is doing.
So
it's a method of practice that allows us over and over and over, just like we're practicing a jump shot, right? Over and over and over, you're practicing how to take initiative. You're practicing how to be in the moment, how to be confident, how to make choices with clarity.
So if I'm at a workshop with you,
yeah,
and I'm gonna be able to practice all those things.
You betcha.
And I'm gonna have fun.
Oh,
and it's not scary.
100%. Well, sometimes it is scary, but I think that's important. I think for people to understand, though, is in order for us to grow, we have to step outside of our comfort zones. But there's other people that are doing it with you. These other people that you see every single day in the cubicle next to you. But maybe you've never really seen them. You know what I mean? Like maybe you've never been in a situation where you had to really trust them. And then suddenly you're thrown into this improv scene where they're saying yes with you. And they're learning with you, for you, and because of you. And that immediate bond that those two people have now, I mean, it's unbreakable. I mean, truly, I am still great friends with people that I took improv classes with years ago, because I'll never forget that one time when this person said yes with me when I was scared and they were scared, but they didn't abandon me.
So there's a big part of team building that's associated with this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How did you get into improv? Like you're not born an improver,
Yeah.
though you say we are all born improvers. How did you go from life improv to legitimate trained improv?
Sure. Well, so it's a heavy story. I'll try to kind of condense it though. So a few things was kind of going on when I was young. I was right at around 2 years old when my father had a stroke and an aneurysm.
Oh my God.
And so it left him with cognitive permanent impairment. And while I always knew Dad to be, Dad, other people would recognize that, he had these special abilities about him. And for me, it was always very normal. But then as I got older and as he got older, I started recognizing his health declining, and I just became more aware of what was happening. And then by the time I was in middle school, I think, y'all, I was struggling. I mean, of course, most of us, I feel like in middle school have that moment when we are just like mad and angry, right? We're like going through puberty and just everything is just getting tossed upside down. But for me, it was all of those things and then some, because I was also witnessing my dad just really start taking a new turn in his health, really losing control on life.
That must have been really quite scary.
Yeah, it
Hard.
absolutely, yes. And then, of course, by the time I was a freshman in high school, I'll never forget it. I was a freshman in high school, and I was having a hard time with social situations, having a hard time even like going into the cafeteria at school. I was skipping school. I missed school my freshman year 9 times. Whoa. And which is not funny. It's not funny, guys. Kids, go to school. It's not funny. This is not funny. But I got suspended. I got into a fight. So like the point of all of this is I just was having a really hard time processing my emotions, expressing my emotions, and feeling confident in the person that I was or the person I was becoming.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then I took my first speech and drama class my junior year in high school, and it was led by Heather Maston, who was a former Second City performer. And she, our high school, we didn't really have like real big fancy, set. We didn't have a big gigantic budget for doing great shows in high school, but none of that mattered because I literally had the single most important thing of all, which was a great teacher. And so she taught us improv. And in improv, you don't need any of those things. You just need each other. And I'll never forget, it was like suddenly the light bulb went off and I was able to start just being confident in then who I was becoming and making choices that I felt like were choices that were emotionally intelligent. I felt like I was starting to create space for others within myself instead of holding like these grudges, right? I was able to create a space of acceptance and love for other people. And even more so, I was able to let go and accept the situation with my dad.
Wow.
That was the big thing. Is I
All-
was
like
all
healing.
from taking a class in improv.
truly, yeah. I mean, I vividly remember being a junior in high school, and I don't remember like the exact day, but I just remember the light bulb going off, and I remember saying, "Oh my gosh, this is what I have to do this for the rest of my life. If this
amazing.
can help me, this can help other people." And I haven't looked back. And so I went to a school. I went to Northern Kentucky University where I knew that they had a great improv program. And then when I graduated there, I went to Chicago. And now this is where the story really takes another turn because 2 weeks before I was supposed to move to Chicago, my dad fell in his apartment. And that was it. It's crazy to even say it out loud, but when he fell, he hit his head.
Oh.
And that was it. It left him completely bedridden. Because he'd already had these issues already, these pre-existing conditions. And so when you add one more head trauma on top of that, it completely, it completely overturned everything. And so he was bedridden. I mean, he was in a catatonic state for a really long time. They did head surgery. And unfortunately, after the surgery, the doctors said, "So if we'll see any change in your dad, we'll see it pretty quickly after the surgery." Well, when dad woke up, he wasn't talking. There was still, there was no change. So what happened was dad then went to a permanent nursing care facility. So like a nursing home.
Right.
And I reluctantly, and I have so many feelings about this now, but I reluctantly still went to Chicago because I was finding that I could still make the drive from Chicago to Cincinnati. And so I did that drive every single weekend for about three and a half years.
How long is that drive?
5 hours one way. And so I go to Chicago only because I wanted to do improv. I knew, again, I had to keep doing it. I wanted to do it. And so I sort of resolved it in myself that if I was going to do this and if I was going to go to Chicago, I wasn't going to be absent, though, from dad's life. So I was making this trip back home every weekend, and what I was finding is, even though Dad wasn't responding to me, he wasn't able to engage in any kind of verbal communication. What was happening is I'd go back and I'd sit with him, and I would basically reenact scenes that we had done that week at IO in class.
That's great.
And
That's awesome.
it was like the one woman show that, well, I had an audience of one every weekend, and it was my dad. And
I'm just saying, this is a movie on the Lifetime Network.
Yeah, right? It is.
Yeah.
You're like gonna make me cry.
Yeah, but what I found though is nurses would come in and they'd kind of, would chuckle with me, or they would, they'd ask me like what I was doing in there with Dad, and then I would start retelling them this funny like moment that I just had with him, or something that I did in class. And what I was very quickly finding was improv was connecting me to my dad in a whole other way that I couldn't possibly measure. And the same thing that I was starting to see with some of the nurses. They'd come in and they would laugh with me and we would chuckle together. And then suddenly these people weren't just They weren't
They weren't just part of a system that was doing this.
Yeah. And then he wasn't just a patient for them anymore. He wasn't just a room number. He was Jerry. Right? Mm-hmm. He was Jerry, and Jerry had a daughter, and her name is Elizabeth, and she comes every weekend, and they do these really fun stories, and it's really fun. And Dad also had a roommate, and his roommate, he was verbal, and so sometimes he'd chime in the conversations with us, and I mean it was like it was every bit of therapy and. I mean, like I can't even really articulate it without saying it was the connection that I needed, and it was that like last little just like that last little bit of the story that I needed to find love, acceptance, forgiveness, and even closure with my relationship with my dad. Because again, I just remember feeling angry for a long time, feeling like, I always wanted to have a quote unquote normal dad. And it's strange, I know to say, but doing improv helped me understand that story though that I have with my dad, it is unique, it is special. And even now, my dad's no longer with me. He passed away about 6 years ago, but I look back and I don't look back now with anger or resentment. And I don't look back and I don't feel sad about even those 4 years that he was bedridden. I mean, I look back and I have laughter and I smile when I think about those times. And, and I really miss it. I mean, it's crazy to say that I actually miss going to the nursing home and sitting with him. But like those moments of him being there with me and connecting with him in that, and just sitting with him, sometimes just sitting in stillness, sitting in that place of stillness was, it was part of my grieving process.
Did he respond? Was he able? Do you think that he?
No, but there were times that when he would laugh and he would smile. But no, he never could respond verbally, but he would, he would.
But he was with you there.
Always,
he was in it.
Yeah.
He was there.
Occasionally he would fall asleep, and that's fine. That was fine. I sometimes that happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I quickly edit my scene, and then I go on to something else.
And now I know that you also have transitioned or translated that work, that life story, and you are now also working with a care facility, a rehab facility.
Yeah.
Can you talk briefly about that?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm doing, I'm the director of applied health improv with the Center for Interprofessional Education and Collaborative Care at VCU.
That's quite a title.
It is, and it took me months to get that down right. I mean, that is like a vocal exercise in of itself. But one of the things though that we have launched here within the last 6 months is a really really great applied improv training program at a rehab hospital here in Richmond called Sheltering Arms Institute. And so what we do is we go there and we work with current and future healthcare workers, and we train them in the art of collaborative care, and especially for transdisciplinary care, which means that essentially you have all of these physicians, healthcare workers, future healthcare workers coming together. But you see, they're all coming together though from different backgrounds, right? So you have like a physical therapist, you might have an occupational therapist, a psychologist. So there's all of these different specialties, but they all got to come together for this one patient to create a positive outcome for this one patient. I mean, talk about teamwork at its finest.
Yeah.
So again, kind of going back to what we were saying before, how do you practice that? Like, how do you practice getting together and collaborating with other people and doing so in an environment that's safe and fun and that allows for a space for trust and support? Well, improv.
Right. Well, and what a lot of people probably don't realize is, so if you go to the doctor, you go to a regular doctor, they're going to write the orders for other people to do things.
Yeah.
But at a rehab facility, it's the other way around. It's all the people that are actually caring for the patient who come together and write the plan for that patient collaboratively.
Yeah.
And essentially, they tell the doctor what the orders are rather than the other way around. So, I mean, you're really talking about teamwork as a healthcare function, which is remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and it's again, it's absolutely beautiful to watch, particularly physicians, kind of pull back some of those layers, let themselves kind of play, put away some of the medical jargon for just a moment and listen and be affected by their colleagues and be in the moment and you know what and play. It's beautiful. It really is. It's absolutely beautiful. And you know what? And you see it in minutes.
Right. And I mean, so some of the people who might be listening to this and are thinking of hiring you to give a keynote speech may be wondering, is improv useful for my group of people? But you're actually doing it with some of the most highly functioning teams in the world. I mean, these are doctors, these are nurses, these are scientists, these are neurochemists. There's a whole bunch of people who are, very high functioning people that you're bringing together and doing play in order to get them to help to actually make a difference in lives.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, you actually used me as a guinea pig last week in one of your keynotes, and I wasn't uncomfortable at all. But speaking to that, what's you've talked about some of the skills, but what's one of your favorite tools that you might teach these doctors or even some people in business?
Yeah. Well, so I'll even kind of use that as an example that you speak about from last week. I mean, it was an exercise that you participated in for maybe 2-3 minutes. And you weren't really for sure what was about to happen, but you did know that there was another individual that was going to join you in the exercise. Right. And what I love is just within maybe 2 or 3 lines of dialogue, I watched you and another participant genuinely have a transformation with each other. Start from a place of maybe a little bit of fear. We're not really sure what's going to happen here. I hope I know what I'm going to say. I hope I figure out what I'm going to do. Oh man, this is a little nerve-wracking. And then kind of watching some of those anxieties just kind of give way, and then watching you be affected by this other individual, and then allowing this other individual, like I said, to change you, to allow you to feel confident in this moment. To what I also love too is you both shared these really beautiful, genuine feelings with each other. That was rooted in friendship and connectivity. And you guys being able to connect like that, I mean, literally in 2 or 3 minutes, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you can take a yoga class for 60 minutes and by the end, you're still feeling like
stressed.
Now look, y'all, I love yoga and I've got nothing against yoga. It's wonderful. It's awesome. But I'm also saying if yoga's not your thing, try improv.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was true. When we started, it was like, I was trying not to laugh. I was also very aware that there was a camera there. So I was trying very hard not to, look away or start giggling. And then eventually when we start talking and you made us actually sit with our feelings.
Yeah.
And I forgot the camera was there and it became a very serious, genuine moment. And that was beautiful.
Yeah. And see, and isn't that neat? Because in those couple of minutes, you let go of that reality of the camera and the lights and feeling like you had to say the right thing or do the right thing. You kind of, you gave yourself permission to just be in a space of neutrality with another individual. And again, those anxieties sort of subsided. And then that's where the listening is, right? Like that's where the empathy is now being in this new space with someone else where they've said, yes, I'll join you in this reality. You've said, yes, I'll join you in this new reality. And then together we're going to create something from nothing. And the communication that one experiences in that moment, it's not just a verbal sign of communication. Right. I mean, it's nonverbal. The way that you look at each other, the shift of your weight from one side to the next, the eye contact or the lack of eye contact. I mean, all of the sudden, we become so much more aware of those little teeny tiny key elements of communication. And again, where else in life do we really practice this?
It's in a safe environment.
Right.
Exactly. And in an environment that allows you to feel safe enough that you can make any choice. There is no right or wrong choice. In improv. And I think that's probably my favorite thing. And I think that's one of the key elements that I tend to do a lot of repeating in my seminars is reminding people that improv gives you a space where mistakes are celebrated, y'all. Right. Like, come on in. Let's see what happens, Right. Let's tear it up. Let's see what we do here in this moment. Let's play. I mean, failure is a rite of passage in improv. Where else in your life has anybody told you that? I mean, so again, when you give someone that kind of a platform, creativity is at its finest now, right, because there are no limits. There's just yes.
And what you're also describing is leadership. I mean, what leadership is in its purest form is just a shared vision of the future and a shared goal and communication between two people. Yeah. So you're not imposing your will and with especially young leaders, one of the things that always gets in their way is their fear of screwing up.
Yeah.
And so what you're giving them actually is the ability to lean into it and recognize that you can use any screw up because it exists.
Yeah.
And you move forward. That's really great.
Yeah. Double down on those screw ups. Heck yeah. Lean into them. Own them.
So you know that I'm a huge fan of improv. I'm a huge fan of you.
Back at ya.
And one of the things that is, because I believe very strongly that improv is probably one of the most useful skills in today's world, especially for leaders and especially in the sciences. But one of the things I like most about you is that you express it in even more strong terms. You honestly believe improv can change your life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So here's my question to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Why do you believe that?
Oh. Yeah. Well, I do believe that improv is the language for humanity. I mean, it doesn't matter what your profession is. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter where you're located. Improv is about connecting with other humans. That's it. It's listening and being affected by other individuals. That's it. It's communication at its finest. And it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. I mean, we are social creatures and we all understand the need for love, support, acceptance, forgiveness, the need to be heard, the need to be seen, to see and be seen, hear and be heard.
Right.
And that's what improv teaches us.
And let you practice.
And lets you practice it. And lets you practice it over and over and over again, just like that jump shot.
That's great. And the better you, and the more you practice it, the easier it is to do when you need it.
Yeah. That you kind of find that it sort of has this beautiful way of like trickling into your life, right? I mean, that, again, back with, my dad and I mean, at the time I didn't realize it, but that's exactly what was happening. I was taking these concepts that I was actually learning in class, the concepts that go so much further beyond than just a book, right? I mean, really understanding what it meant to just sit and be with someone. And I mean, be with them. And to be okay with that feeling of uncertainty, the feeling of fear even, and to accept that, acknowledge it, but continue to move forward through it. And that's what my classes were literally teaching me, that in a really fun, playful way. And then without even knowing it, I was using that same kind of play in literally the hardest, darkest time of my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Well,
and
you're such a powerful story. I don't know if you've considered giving keynotes on it.
You really should.
Talk to my people.
So speaking of that.
Yeah, speaking of that, if you're interested in booking Elizabeth for a workshop or a keynote, please reach out to Laura at envoyportfolio.com and I will make it happen. She's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
And we got one other thing. You recently did a very brave yes and. You were recently married.
Y'all, that was the biggest yes and of my life, y'all. Biggest yes and ever. Holy moly. You know what? Here's the thing. Improv works so well, but apparently improv does not always work well when for weddings. Y'all, listen, like I went into that with the biggest improv mentality ever, where I was like, we'll figure it out.
All the mistakes are perfect.
Literally, yes. I was like, the flowers, we'll figure them out last minute. It's not a big deal. Oh, the catering, it's fine. I don't know, whoever's available, we'll figure it out. And that is not the wedding world.
No, it is not.
So improv for wedding planners is not a thing that's going to happen anytime soon.
That might be a group that I'm going to have to really market and like get creative and innovative with that kind of market.
That's what you tell any bride. The mistakes are a gift. That's what you want.
Yes.
You pay for the mistakes.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Well, that's the movie, right? That's the movie right there. The wedding mistake.
Yes. But I will say it, you know what? It taught me also the importance of planning. There is a time to plan, and there is a time to really lean into the to-do list, and trust also that if something's not perfect, well, you know what? Lean into those imperfections. Those imperfections are what is really going to make it special. And, and remember, case in point, I'll just tell you one very funny imperfection that now today makes me laugh, but day of, I wasn't really laughing. I told my now husband, I said, I'm going to have you go and make sure that you get the wine. Like, so we're talking like real small wedding, y'all, like really, really small wedding.
COVID wedding.
Yeah. And I said, I'd like for you to get the wine. And I had asked some friends, I was like, what do you guys think about boxed wine? Like, is that like, like boxed wine at a wedding? And they were all like, no, just, get like something like mid to top shelf boxed wine, right? Like we're, because they make some good boxed wine, like some very nice, fine boxed wine. So I say to Todd, I said, okay, if you don't mind, go get the boxed wine. Just make sure that you aim for like eye line level wine.
Not the bottom shelf stuff.
And you guess what he brought? He brought not one but 2 boxes of Franzia.
No.
And let me just say, it was delicious. It was delightful. Love Franzia. Love all things Franzia related. But when he came in, I was like, solid choice. So you went bottom tier. Oh, okay, great. Fine, no big deal.
I'm gonna quote you. I'm gonna tell my wife that mistakes in marriage are the golden. I'm just going to remind her that that's why she married me.
Great. Okay.
To lean into the mistakes.
Yeah. And then just, don't give her my number or anything. I'm kidding.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. So nice to talk to you again.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And in theory, this was recording because, so I'm going to hit the button now.